This is the North Sea. Cold, black, violent. A place where storms build in minutes, and the water never forgives a mistake. And in September 2012, 100 meters beneath its surface, a saturation diver became stranded in total darkness after his lifeline snapped, leaving him breathing nothing but the last molecules of air trapped inside his suit. He should have died in less than 2 minutes. He survived for almost 30. This is the impossible story of Chris Lemons. The North Sea is one of the harshest marine environments on Earth. Temperatures hover near freezing. Currents can shift like undersea tornadoes. And at depths greater than 90 meters, the pressure is so extreme that a lungful of untreated air would crush a diver from inside. For this reason, deep-sea welders and maintenance teams use a technique called saturation diving. Instead of ascending after each shift, which would take a week of decompression, divers live for days or weeks inside a pressurized steel habitat, breathing a helium-oxygen mix so their bodies fully saturate with gas. It is one of the most dangerous jobs on Earth, performed only by a few hundred specialists worldwide. In September 2012, the diving support vessel Topaz was stationed in the Huntington Oil Field, 200 kilometers east of Scotland. A 3-man diving team was preparing to descend from their pressurized living chamber into a metal diving bell suspended 100 meters above the seafloor. Their job: perform maintenance on a subsea structure, a network of valves, pipelines, and frames supplying oil and gas. The man assigned to the welding and inspection work was Chris Lemons, a 32-year-old diver known for his calm temperament and precise technique. At 3 a.m., in total darkness, the bell descended. Every saturation diver depends entirely on one thing: the umbilical, a thick, flexible hose bundle that delivers everything that keeps a diver alive. Breathing gas, electricity for lights and tools, hot water to warm the suit, a communication line to the dive supervisor, and a physical tether back to the bell. If the umbilical fails, the diver is completely alone with only the tiny emergency bottle, called a bailout, mounted on his back. At 100 meters, that bottle contains roughly 6 minutes of breathable gas under ideal conditions. But conditions on the seafloor are never ideal. With him were 2 partners, Duncan Alcock, the bellman, and David Uwasa, the second diver. They worked methodically on the subsea frame, speaking through their comms, lights slicing through the black water. Everything was normal, until it wasn't. On the surface, the North Sea had begun to turn. A deep, low-pressure system moved toward the vessel, kicking up winds and forcing the ship into heavier motion. The Topaz used dynamic positioning, thrusters controlled by computers, to hold itself perfectly still above the divers. But the storm was strong enough to disrupt the system. Suddenly, the vessel lurched several meters off station. This movement pulled violently on the divers' umbilicals far below, jerking them sideways. From inside the subsurface structure, Chris felt the tension rise sharply on his line. The steel frame pinned his hose bundle against a beam. For a moment, he fought to free it. Then, in a split second, everything went silent. There was no warning, no tearing sound, just sudden, absolute quiet. Every diver on Earth knows this silence. It means the umbilical, their single source of life, has been severed. Chris's helmet went dark as power vanished. His communications died. Hot water flow stopped instantly, exposing him to icy temperatures. And worst of all, his breathing gas supply was now gone. He was 100 meters underwater, stranded, with nothing but the tiny emergency bottle on his back. A bottle designed to last 5 to 6 minutes. He began to drift backward, away from a frame, carried by the current into open darkness. He was now alone, without light, without heat, without comms, and rapidly sinking into the black. David and Duncan reacted instantly, but the ocean punished every second of delay. The broken umbilical had left Chris floating backward off the structure, far beyond arm's reach. The current at that depth dragged him faster than the divers could swim, and their own hoses, still attached to the bell, limited how far they could go without becoming tangled. The vessel above was mounting a controlled recovery, trying to re-establish its position and straighten the divers' lines, but the process was slow. Chris had drifted into an undersea slope, his silhouette barely visible. Then he disappeared completely as his lights died. In the control room, the supervisor watched the video feed from David's helmet as he searched the dark seabed. Time was running out. And at 100 meters, a missing diver without gas is usually declared dead after 2 minutes. But David refused to give up. He followed the slope, inch by inch, scanning the dark. What he found defied every expectation. After nearly 10 minutes of searching, David's light beam caught a motionless shape on the seafloor. It was Chris. He was lying face down on a metal grate of the subsea structure, arms outstretched, not moving. His bailout tank had run dry. Inside his helmet, there was no breathing sound, no puff of exhaled bubbles. By every rule of physiology, he should have been brain dead. David reached him and performed the only move possible underwater. He grabbed Chris by the harness and began hauling him back toward the bell. It was a slow, agonizing journey. Chris weighed well over 100 kilograms in gear. Their hoses snagged repeatedly. Every kick took effort. When they finally reached the bell, nearly 30 minutes had passed since Chris had lost his air. The supervisor watched the helmet camera feed in disbelief. This should have been a body recovery. But something was wrong. Chris wasn't limp like a corpse. He twitched. Inside the bell, Duncan helped pull him in. They opened the helmet, and Chris gasped. Everyone froze. The diver, who had been without breathable gas far beyond human limits, was breathing again. His face was pale, his eyes unfocused, but he was alive. As the bell ascended, the medical team prepared for catastrophic brain damage, embolisms, or organ failure. Hypoxia at that depth is usually fatal within minutes. But Chris regained full consciousness. Within hours, he was talking. Within days, he was discharged without permanent injury. To this day, his survival is considered one of the greatest medical anomalies in diving history. Experts have studied the case extensively. Two key factors may explain the impossible. One, the gas he'd been breathing was helium-rich and extremely cold. This may have dramatically slowed his metabolism, reducing oxygen consumption to an almost suspended animation state. Two, the pressure at 100 meters is around 11 atmospheres. This increased the dissolved oxygen stored in his blood and tissues, giving him more oxygen in reserve than a surface diver would ever have. Even with these advantages, no one has ever repeated or matched the length of his survival. Most researchers agree. Chris should not be alive. The incident sent shockwaves through the global diving community. Investigations confirmed that a sudden dynamic positioning failure caused the vessel to move off station, snapping the umbilical. New safety procedures were introduced. New backup systems were designed, and the event became a mandatory case study for all saturation divers. As for Chris, he returned to diving months later. He still works in the industry, and although he remembers very little of the actual event, he often describes the moment of waking up in the bell as feeling like being reborn. Today, the footage captured that night is used in training programs, documentaries, and safety simulations. Researchers continue to analyze his physiological data, hoping it can offer insights into survival under extreme hypoxia. The site of the incident, an ordinary section of the North Sea, has become an almost mythical reference point among divers. A place where the impossible briefly became real. No one has ever fully explained how Chris's brain survived so long without oxygen. There are theories, there are models, but no clear answer. Even now, the incident is considered the greatest medical mystery in commercial diving. 100 meters beneath one of the harshest seas on Earth, a man lost everything that keeps a diver alive. He should have died in silence, in darkness, alone. Instead, he returned without brain damage, without physical injury, without explanation. Some survival stories push the limits of the human body. This one breaks them. Thank you for staying with this story. If you'd like more journeys into the unknown, you're welcome to explore the next episode. Until then, stay curious and stay safe.